Hello and welcome to Strictly Game Boy, the podcast you can play only when it's light out. I'm your host Clay, and today I'm joined by my faithful co-host Bryan.
I'm faithful?
You're very faithful. I mean, you've been here for at least 3 episodes. So
okay. Well,
so faithful.
Now that I have your trust, I'll start undermining it.
That's all I ask. What else could I ask for in a co-host?
It's true.
I mean, what's the point of having a co-host on a podcast if they aren't going to stab you in the back at some point?
Right.
And steal all your...
And just spin off their own show.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, just completely leave me in the dust, you know?
That's how corporations work, right?
That's how John Lennon worked.
Oh, yeah? Did he?
Too soon?
Too soon.
I don't know if he did.
I don't know what you were saying. It's okay.
Have you ever played the Beatles Game Boy game?
No.
It's got some holes in it. Made that up. I just made that up on the spot.
I'll laugh. Just for you.
I could tell it was an uncomfortable laugh.
I didn't. I still don't understand the reference, and I love the Beatles.
Well, didn't Lennon? He was shot holes. And like,
should we restart this?
No, people love good shooter jokes. I don't know.
Okay. Oh, people love good shooters. I mean, I am
especially
a good
on the
fan
Game Boy.
I'm a big fan of.
Everybody.
Well, there's some shooter levels in this.
That's
today,
true. So that retains to what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. It does pertain to it.
Moving the topic along here, I really quickly wanted to mention I did have a pretty good weekend with my Game Boy collecting.
Right.
Which I haven't talked a ton about on the show yet, but I'm just trying to pick up old Game Boys when I come across them. Colors I don't have, all that stuff. And so this weekend I got a hold of 2 different Game Boys. Starting off, I found my friend found me a Nintendo Game Boy Pocket that is yellow.
The Yarrow?
The Yarrow. I think it was like $13, which is pretty awesome.
That is pretty sweet.
And it's really in good condition. Maybe like a minor scratch or 2 on the screen, but it's way nicer than my other Game Boy Pocket that I have. So I love it. It's really nice and small. And then the other one you're holding right now.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Is a black Play It Now Game Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And got that. Spent a bit more money on that one than the Pocket, only because it came with the original.
It's in great condition. It's got the cover for the link cable slot.
Oh,
yeah. No, it's really beautiful. I'm very jealous.
Yeah, whoever owned that didn't play it a whole lot, or just took really good care of it.
I would say didn't play it a whole lot.
Probably.
But the buttons feel good. Yeah, everything's pretty great on it.
It's a beautiful.
You hear the little snap.
Oh yeah.
When you turn the on-off switch.
It's a good snap.
Yeah.
But yeah, it came with the box, the original Play It Loud box that the Game Boys came in, which is probably why it was so expensive. The guy who I bought it from was saying how he was waiting because it didn't have all the paperwork in it, and so he was waiting to find that paperwork, and then he was going to sell it for like $100.
So the paperwork is...
Well, like it had like a thing that sat in the box that said "Play It Loud" on it, and it filled like half the box, so you could see that, and then you could also see the Game Boy kind of next to it or whatever.
When I'm not a huge old game collector as far as like buying them off of people or buying boxed copies. When you say something is complete in box, do you need to have the Game Boy instruction manual that came with because every game would have its own manual, and then it would come with a Game Boy instruction manual, which was the same manual that every Game Boy game came with.
Yeah, usually I think complete in box means everything that was in that box originally is in it.
All right, so I don't feel so bad now. I was telling you earlier this week about how my mom threw out every single box that I ever had at some point during my childhood. I had, just a huge stack of them, but I still have all my manuals because I kept them somewhere. But I always threw out the Game Boy manual or the Super Nintendo manual or the NES manual because it was the same one as all the other ones. So I only needed one of them. Okay.
The logic is there.
Sorry, Mom.
the logic's there.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely makes them worth more. So
yeah, I mean, it proves that I wasn't saving the boxes because I wanted them for monetary value someday. I was saving them because I didn't know what else to do with them, and they were so cool. So I wanted to have them.
Totally. So yeah, it's unfortunate it's not complete. I was looking into trying to figure out how to make that happen, but I can't find just the inserts for that kind of thing anywhere. So, oh well.
Yeah.
It's still a great looking Game Boy, and I still have the box.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's almost immaculate.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You say such nice things about my Game Boys.
Well, listeners, if you could see it, it's in really great shape. So
it's a beautiful
I'm jealous.
Yeah, and it also has, like, on the back of the box, it has, like, a Walmart sticker still on it.
Yeah, right. Like a way old Walmart sticker.
Yeah, which is pretty dope. It's got the original serial number on the box, which coincides with the serial number on the Game Boy.
I mean, the Game Boy's serial number sticker, which is right below the card slot, is also in really great shape. So.
Right, which normally those are, like, destroyed. Like, look at the pocket one here. It's all
they're worn, weather worn.
And kind of ugly.
It also helps that you couldn't stick this Game Boy in your pocket. The Game Boy Pocket, however, would probably get worn out by
makes sense.
Slipping in and out of a pocket. So,
unless you had like really big '90s jeans that had a pocket.
Those came later though. Those like real deep, like you could if you were a teenager, you could slip a 40 in them and walk out the store. Yeah.
Yes.
Those are like late '90s kind of pants.
Fair enough. We're a little ahead there.
I had my Game Boy purse, so that was like slick on the inside, so I don't think it messed with my Game Boy too much. So
I'm sure you were looking fabulous.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's all the Game Boy off-topic stuff I have. Anything, Brian, that you'd like to contribute?
No. I would like to contribute more to what we're talking about this week.
Well, you did. You put in some good time and put in some good research to this episode, so I appreciate that. All right, guys. Well, that's enough of that. We already spent 7 minutes, and you are probably sitting here wanting to hear the game that we want to talk about today, because this is a big one.
Unless you really like us and want to hear what we have to say.
That's true.
Right.
Which maybe they do. This is a different episode, a little bit different. So this is our first ever Super Game Boy episode, and really it's the same thing in a nutshell, but basically, we kind of have it planned out where we're going to do some smaller titles sprinkled randomly, just kind of whatever game we want to talk about, we'll do. But we're also going to be doing these Super Game Boy episodes, which are the ones where we pick the higher tier, maybe closer to A-listing games, and we're going to be talking about them. Typically, we will have guests on, other guest hosts joining us. Unfortunately, the guest host we had lined up today, ended up not working out, and that is just, it's unfortunate. But next time we have one of these, we'll definitely have hopefully that person on or someone else. And so, yeah, it's just us focusing a little bit more on the big titles, and we decided to kind of go in chronological order with those, not the other ones. And so we decided, hey, let's start at the very beginning and work our way through. And so starting off, that puts us taking a look today at Super Mario Land.
Been stuck in my head all week. It's crazy.
Yeah, that'll happen when you start playing it. It gets stuck in there. So,
yeah, you want me to roll ahead?
Yeah. So, Brian, tell us a little bit about this game.
So, this game was released, I guess, along with the Game Boy in Japan, or I'm not quite sure of the release date. It's really the 21st of April, 1989. Going forward, the North American version came out a few months later, August 1st of the same year. It was meant to be the pack-in title. If you go back, Mr. Yamauchi, Hiroshi Yamauchi, commissioned this, I guess is a good way to say it. He requested that R&D 1 produce this game. It's not weird. What's significant about this is that this would be the first time that a Mario title was not overseen by Miyamoto, which up to this point we had Super Mario Brothers, then Mario Brothers, and then probably a Mario Brothers Game & Watch game that Miyamoto oversaw. I don't think they count Donkey Kong as a Mario title, but this is canonically the 4th Mario game.
You're right about that, because
no, Mario 2. Sorry,
and 3.
Yeah, I guess Mario 3 did come out in '88 in Japan.
Well, yeah, in Japan, not in North America. That didn't come out until 1990 in America. So,
but he also oversaw Mario Brothers Arcade. So
right.
Yeah. Okay, so I was mixing that up a little bit.
It's
but
okay.
Mario 2 would be, and in America, that's not what I'm talking about. Mario 2 is, although I think he did oversee Doki Doki Panic as well.
Probably.
But this time, Hiroshi Yamauchi ruled with an iron fist. He made decisions based on experience and instinct, and he was really, really, really good at that. It's one of the reasons why they're a huge company, is because he just knew how to make split-second decisions based on just what had come before. And to him, the most logical thing in the world was, okay, R&D 1, if you don't know, is at this point, the only dedicated research and development team at Nintendo. A few years later, we would get Miyamoto's team would coalesce around the title EAD, which is technically R&D 2, the second dedicated research and development team. But at this point, it was just his hardware team was making stuff, and that was Gunpei Yokoi and Satoru Okada, which was kind of his right-hand man. And they had created the Game Boy, and so Yamauchi said, hey, I know you don't make Mario games, but you know the hardware, you know the limitations. I need you to make what is now our mascot. This is 1989, for crying out loud. The NES is the biggest thing in the world and has been for 2 years or a year and a half, depending on, April 21st, 89. So he took it away from Miyamoto and said, I want you who know exactly what you made to make a game for it. So Yokoi and Okada produced and directed this game together, and you've got Hip Tanaka doing all the sound effects, music, all that stuff. It's just like a 3-person game, basically.
Yeah.
So that leads they would never do that again. But Mario would forever go on to be part of Miyamoto's milieu or whatever.
Yep. All right. Well, cool. So that was quite the little rabbit hole. So he created it.
This is why you get some of the weirdness that comes from this game. It's
totally.
It wasn't given to someone who had a vision for the series or who had been working on the series for the last 4, 5, 6 years. So.
Well, and I think that's kind of what this game is known for, is how kind of bizarre and weird and out of place it all is. And I think that's why some people actually love it, is for that reason. Which is funny, because the original Donkey Kong Land, not to get too far off topic, is really weird too.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, 2 and 3 became much more like cookie cutter based off the console versions. Right. And they're both named Land.
I think that was that's the joke,
right?
Like Rainier Wolf Castle sort of thing. Like, yeah, that's exactly what they were going for, was Donkey Kong Land, Mario Land.
Yeah, and then that kind of became. I don't know if any other games kept that, where there was worlds and or countries and lands and worlds, depending on what console you're on. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but this is definitely a bit different and a bit of a departure from what we know. There are a few things that are similar. I mean, in concept, it's all still kind of there. A couple enemies are the same, but really, for the most part, it's quite a different experience and has some different characters than what we're used to. So obviously, we usually talk about whether or not this is a port or an original. This is very much an original. It's not a port of any other game.
But I put it in quotes in our notes because, quotes and notes. Sorry.
That was terrible.
It was awful. But I put original in quotes because it's clear that they were trying to copy the style and the gameplay that Miyamoto had been perfecting, but they're also bringing their own ideas into it. So like you'll see things that make sense in the Mario universe, and then every other thing is like, oh, that makes sense. What the hell is that? Oh, hey, Mario again. Wait, what's going on? Like it's disorienting because you're playing with some of those Mario rules, but then also they're subverting them at the same time.
Right.
These are the guys that worked on Metroid and Kid Icarus, and so they were already making like weird exploratory games and levels, and then having to come back to something that is very straightforward, left to right. I think they tried to keep that, but we'll get to it. They also start like hiding things in there.
Ooh.
So
nice. Cool. Well, that being said, we've hit most of this. Next up, we're going to talk real quickly about our history with the game. Pretty self-explanatory, but really just how we came across this game. Maybe talk about what you thought of it as a kid, and yeah, we'll go from there. Brian, if you want to start us off, I'll carry on after.
Well, I got my I finally got my Game Boy in like the 91 or 92. I previously talked about how I got on one show I've done with you. I can't remember if it was on strictly Game Boy, but I got Kirby's Dream Land and Tetris. Of course, you get Tetris packed in. But it was not very long after that I got Mario Land. And that game was to a young child, that game is hard. I don't think I ended up beating it until the late 90s when I finally just one day I was carrying my Game Boy around and was looking through my games and was like, you know what, I should actually just sit down and beat that game. And it didn't take me very long as an older child, but as a young kid, it was tough. It's a tough game.
Oh yeah.
I think I'd already beaten 1 and 3 in World at that point, so I was just like, yep, I can probably tackle this now.
Totally. Okay. Well, for me, I did not play this game at launch when it first came out in 1989. I was 4 months old at the time, so it had to have been actually a number of years later. This is
Happy birthday.
Is
that coming up?
Next April. Almost.
All right.
17th.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Close. I don't expect much, just something from you.
Okay. All right.
It has to be Game Boy related too.
I'll get you a black near mint condition fat Game Boy.
What are you doing? Don't touch my Game Boy. You're just gonna steal it and bring it back in a couple weeks.
Basically.
Here you go.
It's beautiful, by the way. It's the only Game Boy with an identical serial number of a different Game Boy.
Wow. What are the odds?
Yeah, I know, it's weird.
No, but what I was going to get at was it's so weird because in my brain or in my memories, it felt like this game was brand new when I got it. Like this had just come out. The world was just seeing this game. And so I was right there alongside. But no, this was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years probably before I was playing it. I don't think I would have played a Game Boy game until I was at least, I don't know, what age do kids start playing basic Game Boy?
I mean, as young as possible.
What is possible though?
I don't know. I was playing.
There's no way you can play a Game Boy at like 2.
I mean, I was playing an NES when I was 3, so.
So maybe I was like 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there. So at this point we're into the 90s. Anyway, it's just weird. I always think that I'm like right there when things happen, but really I'm just watching reruns or getting really old games. But it worked out because my parents would buy me these games because they were older and probably a little cheaper. But like I mentioned in episode 0, my sister got an original Game Boy before I ever got a Game Boy. And so I remember we were taking a trip to Orlando, Florida to visit my grandparents and go to Disney, I presume.
But that's what you do in Orlando. Grandparents and Disney.
Yep. What else is there really? Old people and Disney. And so my parents, for whatever reason, got my sister one, even though she wasn't a big gamer, got her one because we were flying. And I think it was the first time that I can recall that we flew. And don't have a lot of memories with it. Once again, I was probably pretty young. But I do remember that my sister had her Game Boy, and she had Tetris, and she had Mario Land, Super Mario Land. And actually, surprisingly, she was kind enough to let me play it at one point. Wasn't a fan of Tetris, really didn't touch it. didn't have any interest in it. It was boring to me. I remember my sister really liked it though, and so that left Mario, and so I think at that point I knew what Mario was. I probably played some of the other ones, so that was really where I spent most of my time. I was never much of a Mario beater. I didn't really beat a lot of Marios, not until I got older. So I don't really remember how far I got into this. Like you mentioned, as a kid, it's not the easiest game, so I probably didn't get too far, but I just remember loving it and playing it and not really caring if I was good or not. So every time I put it in, definitely at least that first level totally brings me back to to that time. So at least I remember that. Sometimes I have trouble remembering like early video gaming, but that's an old memory. So the fact that I can remember even some of that is pretty great.
The fact that this game is kind of jarring when you play it also leads to that.
Totally.
Like you'll remember this game.
Oh yeah, and I've always like campaigned hard for it. I remember when it came out on 3DS, like the eShop or whatever. I like immediately picked 1 and 2 up, and was like, yeah, I gotta have this. And I was really hoping that when Mario Maker came out, that eventually there'd be like some DLC where you could create Mario Land levels, and unfortunately never came. But I was like, I would have been stoked. I don't know if it would have lost its novelty after a while, but I just think it would have been a cool thing to have added. But probably would have been a logistical nightmare. So, but other than that, it's been good times, and I'm glad it was available at launch. I think it was a strong title to have alongside Tetris. They offset each other really well, and were good games and kept people's interest for quite a while, I would say. So it wasn't some like Galaga shooter that got boring after a while, or like with some high score or something.
Well, even though that's
what Tetris
but then
was.
that level's over.
That's true. That's true. So strong launch titles, even if there was only 2 of them. But definitely
there's more, but
not at launch. There was just these 2, wasn't there?
No, there's like 6.
Oh,
but yeah,
I don't know what I was thinking then. But these are the 2 big ones, I guess. Maybe that's where my head's at.
And now it's time for Real or Fake, the point in the show where one host tries to stump the other by describing a Game Boy game that is real or fake.
It's my turn to come up with a real or fake Game Boy game.
Yes.
And you will try to suss out the truth.
That is right. I have to decide. I think I get like 3 questions to ask you, which you may or may not know the answer to. So you can always say, I don't know. And
right. And so that, right. We understand. So
we do. I understand the rules.
So
even if the listener doesn't.
All right. So the game for this week is Choplifter.
What do you do in Choplifter?
You fly a helicopter, and you can kill people. People being other helicopters,
right?
But your main objective is to pick up other people, to save people. Kind of like Defender,
right? So it's like a left and right shooting game.
So that is apparently your one non-yes or no answer.
Do they have to be yes or no's?
I don't know.
I think you just assumed they had to be.
Okay.
Is there any shoplifting in this game? Like,
no.
You don't steal anything from while you're on a helicopter. That's 2. Third one. Who developed this game?
I know the publisher. Publisher would be like Broderbund or something like that.
Yeah,
or at least the license holder.
This is not a real game.
No, it is not a real game. Good job.
Yeah.
Choplifter does not exist on the Game Boy. Choplifter 2 and Choplifter 3 do.
Okay.
But Choplifter itself was never ported to the Game Boy.
Ooh. All right. Well, I
tried to subvert that because Choplifter is an actual game.
I wasn't even aware of that. That was an actual game.
Yeah. No. It's kind of in that shoot 'em up genre where you're rescuing people, much like Striker or Defender, but Defender turns into a totally different game once you lose everybody.
Huh. Because my thought process was that sounds really complicated to try to make happen on a Game Boy, like picking people up and stuff. It just sounded like a lot.
Well, I'm sure 2 and 3 probably have that same mechanic, so it's a thing.
So it exists. Yeah, because I played Defender on the Game Boy, so I knew like left and right shooting, like that's not a problem. but the whole picking people up.
No, that's easy enough. The way that Broderbund, I know you've definitely played Broderbund games. If you've played, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Right.
Maybe the original Prince of Persia. If you've ever tried that for 2 minutes and then gotten frustrated because it's a really complicated game. It's really, really amazing for a 1989 game. But their philosophy was, let's find people who are making games that are doing stuff that other people aren't. So someone would submit a game and go, hey, that's kind of close to some sort of arcadey experience.
Right.
Think of something else. And the Choplifter guy was like, well, I want to make a game where, you can shoot other helicopters, but it's more about you only get points for picking people up. And they were like, this is 1982 or 83. That's not something that's ever been explored before. And so they made it. And,
nice. Okay. Well, that's really interesting that they released 2 and 3, but not 1.
Well, 1 is an old game. So, early to mid 80s. So it doesn't surprise me that Choplifter 1 wasn't there, but whoever got the rights and made Choplifter 2 and 3 ported it. So,
well, you totally could have tricked me if I was aware of 2 and 3.
Right,
but
right.
Thankfully, I wasn't. I was thinking about this game the other day. I think the more we do this show and the more we explore this library, it's going to be more difficult to trick each other.
Oh, okay, yeah. But you got me last time, so
that's true.
Yeah, so you've got a point, and I don't.
All right. Well, maybe
I'll try to remember you don't know as
next
much
time.
about old games as I do.
Yeah, that's true. You do have that going again for you as well. So, All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the story for Super Mario Land. Back into it. Brian, would you like to care to try to attempt? Well, you have to. I'm the host, and you just have to do what I say.
All right. Once upon a time, there was a peaceful world called Sarasalad. Land.
Close.
Whatever.
Yeah, sounds right.
In this world, there were 4 kingdoms named Birabuto, Muda, Easton, and Chai. One day, the skies of Sarasaland were suddenly covered by a huge black cloud. From a crack in this cloud, the unknown space monster Tatanga emerged and tried to conquer Sarasaland. Tatanga hypnotized the people of all the kingdoms so that he could control them in any way he liked. In this way, he took over Sarasaland. Now he wants to marry Princess Daisy of Sarasaland and make her his queen. Mario came to know of these events. Really? Okay. And has started on a journey to the Chai Kingdom, where Princess Daisy is held captive, in order to restore peace to Sarasaland. Can Mario defeat Tatanga, release the people from his interstellar hypnosis, and rescue Princess Daisy? Well, he can if you do it. It's all up to you and Mario's skills. So go for it, Mario!
Wow. So that is straight from the manual of the game.
Except for maybe that last sentence.
Yeah, you embellished a little there.
Yeah, a little bit of a paraphrase, but Tatanga. Is anyone else having a Boy Meets World flashback?
Dude,
right now?
I was trying to how do I make a Boy Meets World joke?
I know, and I couldn't think of one.
So we'll just throw it out there. Yes. So
thank God it's Tatanga.
These names are so weird, and yeah.
And they like, I mean, I know some of it is in a way like, well, maybe not. 89, they may have been. I feel like Nintendo at this point had a localization department up and running. So
right.
But yeah.
My favorite line from this whole thing is, can Mario defeat Tatanga, release the people from his interstellar hypnosis, and rescue Princess Daisy?
I know. What is the interstellar hypnosis about? That's wild.
I feel like it's just normal hypnosis, but because he's from outer space, it's interstellar.
Right. We don't have the capacity to deal with it, so you have to mention how interstellar it is.
So my question is, and you probably aren't the person to ask this to, is this game canon? Is this all real? Do these places exist in the overall Mario canon?
Well, they don't give him a dream sequence at the end, so right. I would say yes.
Okay. So
I mean, Daisy comes from this,
right.
So it technically is canon. I guess maybe only in the Camelot and Mario Party worlds is it canon. because they seem to use Daisy a lot. I guess no, she shows up in Mario Kart now, so whatever.
Yeah. So is this her first game?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the first Daisy game. Up until this point, it had just been Pauline and Princess Toadstool.
Okay. Yeah, it says she's appeared in 57 games as of 2017. First being from the Super Mario Land. Yeah, it's got all the stuff in here about Sarasa Land and all that. So I think that they've still held to that, as far as I can tell. Her next appearance was NES Open Tournament Golf in 1991 as Luigi's caddy.
Oh, okay. That's where the they be banging thing comes from, right? Basically, that's his girlfriend.
Brian, that's not appropriate.
Oh.
This is a family show.
Well, I mean, how are families made?
When
Gotcha.
two people love each other very much.
When a caddy and a golfer love each other very much.
That's right. They come together. And then it said she took a break for about 9 years until 2000. She showed back up in Mario Tennis.
Yep.
And
there you
so
go.
from there, she's kind of always been in sports games. So it's a really
Mario
weird...
Tennis 64 is like the prism where everything, like light goes in and then it all just splits and separates.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we have juniors and real livers and everything.
And
so
the purple devil is here and all that stuff. So
why not?
Yeah.
She's also in Minecraft for the Wii U.
Okay. Cool.
I just saw that. I thought I'd randomly throw that out there.
Good for her.
She's really come a long way since the Game Boy.
She's in the most popular game of all time, basically.
All right, so pulling it back in, story-wise, what do you think of this, Brian? Do you like this? Do you hate it? Is it charming but weird and endearing, or is it just kind of dumb?
Well, I mean, it's like the Zelda timeline. It's let's make a game, or in the case of the Zelda timeline, let's make a game series, and then later go, well, how can we, if we have to, I guess we have to create 3 paragraphs. How can we describe it in 3 paragraphs? So,
yeah,
whatever.
So
it's fine.
If you had to take those paragraphs and cram them down into 4 words for the whole story and the whole point of the game, what 4 words would you choose?
Mario want to save Daisy.
That's it.
Yep.
That's all you need to know.
That's basically it.
That's it. But the game has given us such a more elaborate plot. And so is this storyline actually present in the game itself?
No.
We don't, outside of maybe after each level trying to find Daisy, we aren't really given this backstory in the game.
I mean, there are 5 words in this game, and they repeat 3 times. I forget what I guess when you beat the game, there's a different set of words.
I was going to say, there's probably some different ones.
But, thank you, Mario. Oh, Daisy.
Yes. Oh, Daisy.
For the most part.
So we know she's Daisy. But, yeah, so in order to get this storyline, you had to open up your manual and read. Mm-hmm. This actually has a really
this
great...
is the 80s,
Right.
So
it's all about the manual.
all about the manuals.
And this manual is actually really cool. If you guys have a copy and you're listening, definitely check it out or go online and look it up. There's like PDFs where they scanned it. Mm-hmm. There's some great stuff in this manual. I know this isn't really on topic, but...
Full color drawings of... in more detailed drawings of the bad guys in this game.
Right. And I love, they'll have a drawing of the end of the level where you can go to the door on the top or the door on the bottom, and they have little arrows, little diagrams. I just love that kind of stuff. It's like they're trying to help the player out, and nowadays manuals, if they even exist, are really just, this is how the game works. But back in the day, they're like, hey, here's some little hot tips and tricks, and here's some diagrams and characters, and I don't know, it's really cool. So for me, I think it's a cool little storyline. It's way different than what you get in your normal Mario game, so it's a fun change of pace. Instead of Bowser's nowhere to be found in this.
Nope.
Peach is nowhere to be found, and so instead we have this alien bad guy who's got his own little ship thing, and so it's just different. Yeah, the names are weird and it doesn't really fit in the Mario Kingdom kind of feel, but for a portable game, it's kind of like a spin-off game, more or less. It's this is a different adventure that has nothing to do with what is going on the console. And so,
because this has nothing to do with what was going on in the Mario series, really.
Right. And so it's we're getting our own little mini side quest Mario adventure that only he's a part of and really has nothing to do with,
and a lot of this is also probably NOA. Like I said, it could be Japan because a lot of Japanese companies were trying to translate their own stuff, but NOA was kind of the the gatekeeper for Japanese Nintendo. So But I think it's funny that Sarasaland, whatever.
Yeah.
Is very, very close to A Link to the Past's little mentor guy who talks to you, Sir Hasrala, or how. Once again, there's just so many A's and S's that like, it's
no
not
one
often,
knows.
It's not often that you get a word that has alliteration and assonance in the same word. So there's just the same vowel and the same consonant repeating itself over and over again inside of it. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of that character's name, who was a big part of A Link to the Past.
Nice. Yeah.
I wonder if they just, when they're translating it, they're like, "Well, let's do an homage to a different Nintendo game." Maybe.
Or maybe they're like, well, let's just throw enough letters in here that people don't even try to say it, and they'll just realize it's not important. So, all right. So that's the story. Moving forward, we should talk about the gameplay. And then after we get through a little bit of that, I mean, there's only so much you can really explain about a Mario game. Most people know how those play out. We'll go into level by level and just kind of talk about them somewhat briefly. Brian, starting us off, 3 words to describe the gameplay of this. What would you say?
Hot jumping action. Not really, but it's look. They're trying to make a Mario game. These are people who are already like excellent programmers in their own right, trying to translate the Mario series and condense it down, and I think they do a pretty good job of it. It has many of the elements. There are even like homages to Mario 1, where you jump down a pipe at the beginning, and it's that same room from the first pipe of Mario 1.
Yeah.
Where there's just a bunch of coins there, and then an exit pipe. A lot of the bosses will have a thing behind them that you have to get to, and the bridge doesn't drop out, but it kills the bad guy, and you win and go see the princess, and she's not the princess. So the gameplay is rooted in Mario, but there are differences. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I know.
It still has that sort of when you're the trademark of early Mario games was that you can control his momentum in midair, which now it's ludicrous to say that like a platforming game wouldn't have that. But back then that was like something that they had like kind of perfected in Mario was, hey, even if you're in midair, you can start going backwards if you're going forward. Some of the bad guys are still the same, but they act differently. Like everything about this game is slightly skewed. You got any?
Yeah, like the turtles, the Koopas. When you jump on them, instead of shells bouncing around, they turn into a time bomb that ticks for a second or two and then blows up. So instead of just sitting around, you have to decide. You jump on it, and then you got to go somewhere. You can't just stay there. And so little things like that kind of tweak it. Everything in this game, that's visuals. I won't go there yet.
Okay. You've also got like coin blocks where you can hit them and get 1 coin, but then some of them have 10 coins in them, just like in Mario 1. Or you've got fire flowers, but they act differently. You have I don't know.
So on top of the normal platforming levels, there's also like a shoot 'em up level.
Right. So you go through the first so there's 3 levels instead of 4, like in Mario 1. And
right.
The third level is the boss level, or the dungeon, or the castle, or whatever you want to call it. But then, so that's very straightforward. And then you go into World 2, and you get to the boss area, and now you're in, a shoot 'em up level, which, completely subverts your expectations. When I was a kid and I got to that point, I was like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. Like, this is completely different.
Yeah.
Before it was like, I can kind of see the similarities. No, this is just they threw in, and they do it again. The very last level is also a shoot 'em up level. So, and I always really liked that, but how jarring that was.
Right. Yeah, I like it. I wish more Mario games had these because it's just a nice little change of pace. I mean, It's not overly difficult. I say that even though I died multiple times playing that level today.
Yeah. No. If you, I think you were just rushing to see more of the the game again before we started.
Totally.
I found myself rushing yesterday when I was playing through it, and that was definitely to my detriment because I ended up dying and getting a game over.
Yeah. So it's a good change of pace. I'm glad they added it. It's probably an easy thing to program, compared to a normal scroller. This one's kind of auto scrolls and you shoot a thing. So, but it's a good change of pace. I appreciate that they added it, even if it wasn't really a norm for the game, for the series. Couple other like mechanical things at the end of most levels. There are 2 doors that you can go through, one up high and one down below.
This is something that they carried over into Mario Land 2. Was that if you were up top, if you rang the bell,
yeah.
If there was a little, and something that I think Miyamoto took from this game and was like, that's a cool idea. Why don't we do that for the next one?
Yeah, and we've been trying to not talk about 2,
right?
Even though that's probably the one that would be. But I prefer to talk about.
I feel like it's worth bringing up because okay, look, so the other thing about R&D 1 is that their games were they weren't as polished as Miyamoto games, but the way that they created worlds, they were more exploratory. Mario has secrets. Mario 1 definitely does. Mario 2 does. Mario 3, oh yeah, Mario 3 definitely has lots of secrets.
Yep.
But the way that this game works is like they're more puzzly, the levels are. So like there will be parts that you can't get to in just normal, like especially in like I think 1-3, there are places that you can't get to if you are big or if you are small. You'll see stuff on the roof and go like, well, how do I get to that? You already missed it. So you'll have to go back and play that game and figure out what you missed and satisfy like a certain criteria just to get to that part. So there's like the hidden parts are more puzzle based in this game, which goes because Gunpei Yokoi and Satoru Ikeda thought about it that way. That was how they made Metroid is just full of hidden things. So was Kid Icarus.
Yeah,
they're 2 big games up until that point.
You didn't let me finish my thought.
Sorry.
No, it's cool. I wasn't scolding you for mentioning Mario Land 2. But no, it was cool that you mentioned that. That's probably something that was taken from the first game and actually brought into the second game. And I don't know. I think that's cool. At least some of the stuff stuck around, even if they do feel like very different games. There are some consistencies that stayed the same. And basically at the end of each level, it's more difficult to get to the top one. And if you can find your way up to the top one by navigating things you have to jump across, you get a little mini game which grants you extra lives depending on how you do. You can get up to like 3 lives, or you can also get like a flower power,
super ball, whatever.
Whatever that thing is, cannonballs. Shooting.
I'm too old to remember the name of Bouncy Ball Company, so I'll just say it's a Bouncy Ball.
Super Ball? Was that what?
I'm sure there's a Super Ball somewhere.
Yeah. There's got to be.
I do love that the end of the level thing because it's a puzzle, and the further you get into the game, early on you're able to try that puzzle again, but the later levels, if you don't know what's coming or react quick enough, you're screwed. You just have to accept that you won't be able to get to the bonus game that time,
right? Until
you come back and play it again.
Yeah, so that's cool. It's kind of becomes more punishing and all that. So that's good. I like that. I always enjoy that part of the level. You get to the end, you're like, oh, I don't have to rush to the exit. I can kind of try to do this little thing. Bryan, anything else gameplay wise that we need to hit on? I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
No, I think like when you think about this game, you need to think about like the way that it does secrets is completely different than the way that Miyamoto Marios do secrets. And I never thought about it before how Miyamoto does take inspiration from this game too,
yeah, so which is probably kind of surprising.
Yeah,
I don't know the guy personally, but
no.
He doesn't seem like one who typically does that sort of thing. So
Yeah, the way that Yokoi approached games was, he was like Miyamoto's mentor and senpai or whatever, but they approached games differently.
Right.
Yokoi was definitely more of an engineering minded, where Miyamoto came at it from like a creativity and design standpoint, I guess. But
yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention, we talked about this a little bit earlier before we started recording. It's like the running mechanic of this game.
Yes, we do.
You hold down the B button to run in this game, which it's cool that it has it, because some games at this time didn't have run buttons. I think almost all Mario games do. Most Donkey Kongs do. So I'm used to using the B button to run. I have no issues with them. I'm glad that it's in here. I am not a fan of the run mechanic or the physics of the run in this game. And I haven't fully narrowed it down as to what it does that really bothers me.
So I kind of have done that. Well, one, you think about the way that Miyamoto goes about making a game is that the mechanics they take front and center. So those need to be hammered out and perfect before you even begin to think about, okay, what's this game? What shape is this game going to take? Whereas I think the very nature of this game being commissioned by the head of the company saying like, hey, this hardware, you just finished like designing it for 2 years. I need you to make something that works around it. This game starts off as, a very un-Nintendo-like philosophy of we have an idea before we have gameplay. And so you can kind of start there with it. As far as the jumping and the running itself, your inertia is really strange in this game.
Definitely.
You can go really fast, and when you jump, you can keep going fast. But if you at all try to like slow down your movement, like in Mario games, you can slow down your jump, but it slows down like a kind of predictable way. In this one, it's like hitting like full stop on the brakes. So your inertia will completely stop. So a lot of times if you feel like you're about to jump over something because you're just going too fast, which is very easy to do with the way this game moves, when you try to slow yourself down, it's like an almost complete stop. And so like you'll end up trying to land on something, but then you'll come up short because all of a sudden Mario's not going anywhere. And it's tough to get him to start going again. So like, yeah, I think it's more the like inertia is the problem of this game. Like it's tough to regulate on your own just by playing the game. But yeah. I know what you're talking about. Like it's rough. It's really rough.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's just I noticed earlier I was running and then I got to the edge of something. I was up high and so I stopped, but I like ran off the edge and just like really quickly was like down, and I was like, whoa, okay. I just fell like really quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think in this game, I noticed just the other day, if you don't run, you have so much better control over Mario. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's certain parts you have to run and certain parts where it works better to run. But I just found myself enjoying it a lot more not running unless I had to. I had more control. It wasn't too fast that I couldn't really, I had time to react, and it felt like it was doing what I needed it to do. But I just found myself losing control, especially on when there's parts where there's pits below. Running, I just found made it that much more difficult. So it's not broken or like terrible. It's just I'm not a huge fan of the running in this one.
No, it's not as polished, which is a word that is synonymous with Miyamoto games.
You just love saying his name, don't you?
Yeah, well, I'm not some moron who calls him Shiggy, so...
Ooh, how disrespectful.
I know, it's awful. I hate it.
Who do you think you are?
I think I'm best friends with him.
Yeah, no. He would probably slap you if you called him
I
that.
hope he would, or at least upend a tea table and walk out of the room.
Well, that's like a very Japanese cultural thing to do.
It's a very Miyamoto thing to do. But no, like the polish there, like like I said, the movement is key. So I think that if this had been in his hands, Mario 2 runs, Mario Land 2 is just so smooth. It's great. This is more indicative of a Yokoi game. where the ideas are all there, but maybe it's not as polished, but maybe you'll get there eventually. Like Metroid isn't completely polished. It's also a hard game. So a lot of R&D 1 games are really tough.
Yeah. I agree.
Maybe because of their movement. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I would agree. I don't think. I mean, as a kid, this was it was a more difficult game, but like we mentioned earlier, as an adult or whatever it is that we are, it's definitely more manageable, especially if you are even relatively good at getting those extra lives at the end of the levels. It's not a terribly difficult game to get through, and it's not terribly long either.
No, it's not 12 levels. And if you're paying attention to the, if you can get to those bonus stages at the end of each level, you stand a good chance of at least making it through on the very least one continue.
Right.
But yeah, I think the most important thing to bring up about the gameplay is just how puzzle based it is over normal Mario games, which are like, hey, here's a secret, but keep moving.
Yeah.
You get to stop and think a little bit in this one.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Because I remember you were watching me play at one point. You're like, you're missing all the things below, and I was like, yeah, I know, I'm good. That's fine.
Yeah, and you don't have to do that. You can just keep moving if you want. But there's some weird. It's such a weird Mario game, and we've talked about all the reasons why already. So
one other thing, talking about like multiple ways to play, is the bosses on this game. Most of them, if not all of them, you have the choice to fight it or just get around it, which is kind of the way Bowser was, originally.
Right.
But even in the underwater level that I was just playing, the submarine one or whatever.
Yeah, you can shoot that guy if you want.
Or you could just like try to swim under him, break some blocks, and get through.
The third level one, you can he's normal again. Like there's a guy on a bridge and a thing behind him. You can shoot him if you have the Super Ball power, but you can also just jump on his head. Yeah. You don't even need to worry about it.
Huh.
And then you can also try and pass him and just get to the edge and hit it. So, whatever.
Also, bullet bills come out of pipes in this game.
Yes, but a bullet bill shooter itself comes out of pipes.
Right. It doesn't shoot a bullet bill.
Yeah,
out.
like it's weird.
It's super weird.
It's not like Torpedo Ted from Mario, where a hand from Mario World, where a hand drops out of the pipe and then lets him go.
Yeah,
something like that. So
right. All right, that's enough of gameplay. We talked plenty there. Real quickly, hopefully not too long, Brian. Let's not go super in depth and bore people.
I don't think
much.
We really need to. I mean, Birabuto is World 1, and it's pretty simple, straightforward. There's nothing too different about these levels. You have your basic, normal level, and then there'll be like moving platforms, or there's just a bunch of small platforms, and then more bad guys that take like 2 hits to take out with your Super Ball, or you can just jump on them. It just gets less forgiving as it goes along. When we get to World 1, World 2, World 3. World 1's really straightforward. World 2 is also straightforward, but then ends with a shoot 'em up level.
Right.
And that's World 2 is what? Muda?
Yeah, Muda.
Easton has like Easter Island heads jumping around, or flapping around. They have wings. They're strange. I mean, I don't think there's much that differentiates these levels, these worlds.
Just different backdrops sometimes.
Yeah, like it gets very like Egyptian and Easton, I guess, or even the final level of World 1, Birabuto. You've got like sphinxes standing around, but
yeah, this game's very exotic. They're like, oh, all these levels are going to be like the desert levels, except with like different accents and overall themes. What is with this bad guy, dude? Did you see that? Like the little girl?
Oh, the like thing. It's like it looks like a thief. It always reminds me of some kind of like hopping thief. Yeah, with like its hands out like in like crane, like the was that the crane pose from Karate Kid?
Oh, is that what they're kind of doing? It's like a kung
sort
fu
of
thing.
Except they're not lifting their leg; they're just standing straight up with their arms out. So maybe it's more of like a Frankenstein pose. I don't know.
It's by far the weirdest enemy I've probably
it is
ever
strange,
seen.
and it just sits there and like kind of hops, and then stops, and then hops again. Yeah, it's weird.
Normally Mario is killing like or hurting creatures, animals, monster, bullet things.
Yeah, that's
This
a
is a
babysitter.
human. That's a person.
That's like a babysitter who's trying to jump on top of you. I guess I don't know.
So weird.
Got pigtails.
Yeah.
Yeah. The final world Chai has like bamboo sticks and like mountains with clouds in the background. It's very like Japanese. A Japanese vibe to it, or at least a Far East Asian vibe to it. So, look, there's like 3 of those hopping babysitters at one point, all jumping in on you.
I don't think they're babysitters. I think they're supposed to be kung fu people.
Well, they remind me of my babysitter.
You had a really weird babysitter.
Yeah, I did.
I'm sorry.
She taught me a lot about video games, though. She was cool.
And kung fu, apparently.
Yeah, kung fu. She taught me the crane pose. Showed me Karate Kid.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then you have another airplane level toward the end there.
Yeah, the final level of Chai, World 4, is also
got Mario in his little plane with his little helmet on.
As we all know him.
He looks pretty cool.
We know him very well that way. No.
Isn't there a pilot costume in Odyssey?
Yes, there is.
I wonder if
there's like a sort of 30s pilot. Yeah, I'm saying it now. Pilot outfit.
I wonder if that's maybe this is where they got it from.
Yeah,
perhaps.
something like that. It's very adventure, serial adventure, George Lucas sort of Indiana Jones kind of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Do we want to talk about the final boss?
The final boss has a second form, which is where the interstellar mind waves come from. He's very alien-esque and kind of looks like the moon boss in Mario Land 2.
Okay.
He's got a ship that he's flying around. He doesn't do the same stuff. They change it up, but he's not too difficult either. You just have to avoid his stuff and just keep shooting. So.
Right.
But the level leading up to that area is really tough. Is it 4-2? Is probably the most Mario Castle level in the game. There are the fireballs that are spinning around a singular point, just like the fireball chains that are in Mario 1, or those weird like disco balls that spin around in Mario 3.
Yeah.
They kind of took that from the Miyamoto team, but yeah.
Would you like to talk about the ending of the game after you beat the final boss?
You can do that.
All right, I will do it. So after you defeat I'm not even gonna try to remember its name. Well, up to this point, every time you would
Topanga, by the way.
Topanga.
Yes.
Up to this point, every time you would beat a boss, you would go into the room and there would be the fake out, which was Daisy.
Which was jarring to like a 6-7
Right, because Daisy would turn into insert bad guy here.
One of the jumping bad guys.
From the levels previous.
Yeah, the only one I was able to get to as a kid was the bug, and it makes this sound, and it was just like, oh, that's creepy for some reason.
It's pretty terrifying.
Give me the willies.
And so it was the whole fake out, she's in another castle thing, basically. So finally, once you beat the final boss, you get to the end here, and then it is said, Daisy. There's another Daisy in
Daisy,
there.
Daisy.
Daisy. She says, thank you, Mario, and then a little heart comes out from her.
Yeah.
Fill in the blanks there. And then you get this great prompt where it says, your quest is over. But then they start to walk away, and you're like, what is going on? And they jump in a freaking jet. Not a prop plane from earlier.
Not the ship that you were in, or the submarine that you were in.
This is a rocket jet, and they fly away, and you're like, oh, okay. Where are they going?
To fight the real final boss.
That's right. No, they're flying to the credits, and then the credits start to roll.
And this is kind of funny just for the fact that 1989 might have been like the first time that they started putting actual names in their Nintendo games. Like, I played Zelda 2 recently, and that's like an 88 game, and that has fake names in it.
Really?
Yeah. Zelda 1 has fake names. Like a lot of these credits, they were still kind of afraid to to put actual programmers' names in for fear that they would be stolen away or something like that.
Huh.
Which is more of a fear in American developers, but mostly Japanese developers are faithful to their company men. But,
right.
Yeah, I do like that. Gunpei Yokoi gets his little and okay to get their names at the very end.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the game in a nutshell. We should hit real quick, however long, I guess. We got to talk about some visuals and audio here.
Visuals are simple. They're fun little designs for things. We were just talking about the hopping kung fu crane style chick, whatever. But yeah, like they're all. I think the things that come from pre-existing ideas from Mario games are very simply made. The new ideas in this game are the ones that are more interesting. The bugs, the sphinxes, the snakes. That the sphinx and the snake both do the same thing, but they look different. The way that bad guys die, like you smush them and they make this death-curdling sound as they flip off the screen, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the graphics themselves aren't amazing. There aren't any colors, but, I think some of the designs are actually kind of cool.
Here's my thought. With the original Game Boy, it's difficult because the more detail and the more background things you add, the more difficult it becomes to see what you're doing.
The slower it moves, too.
Well, that as well.
The frame rate.
But I'm going at it just straight. I can't tell what the heck's going on. and I know I've already mentioned this game once, but already Donkey Kong Land 1 is a visual nightmare to navigate.
Yeah, that is a very busy game.
They went for high detail, and you can't tell what they're doing. So this game was like, even though it was like one of the first games, it's like, hey, we're not going to worry about like cool details and making things look really elaborate. We are doing very barren backgrounds, white, and we'll throw an occasional very light tree or a cloud high up in the sky.
Right.
That way, it's just not. There's no confusion of what you're looking at.
Once again, these were people who had created the platform, so they knew exactly what its limitations were. And maybe going forward, they learned more, and were able to exploit it more as they went along. Which is the case with most game systems. Is you can exploit the systems and push it further and further. But this first early on game, we've got completely clear backgrounds with just some embellishments thrown in the back.
Yeah, and the embellishments that are thrown in are usually like it's even like a lighter shade, whereas everything that you can jump on or be hit by is the darkest shade that you can make on the console.
It makes the contrast from foreground to background. Like these are things you interact with. These are things that are just for show.
Right. And so I appreciate that. I like that about it. Also worth noting, everything is really small in this game. They definitely took a further back view of the game and made each sprite probably a bit smaller. But instead of it being super zoomed in. And then obviously when they hit the sequel, that all changed. And they brought it in much more detail.
Field of view shrank in, or came forward, and you see less of the level. The characters are bigger,
more detail,
all
that. So this is a much more simplistic approach, much less pixels put into each item, less detailed, but you can see more. And honestly, I don't know which I would prefer. I think they both work. I appreciate that they kind of tried to upgrade and make things look better in the second one, but it at times is a bit too zoomed in, if you ask me. So I'm totally okay with the smaller sprite, less pixel look.
I mean, eventually R&D 1 had to do that with Metroid. Metroid 2 is very zoomed in, which that was that development team. So they eventually found that was the way to go, at least for that kind of series. When the same thing with Miyamoto and Mario Land 2.
Yeah. Any other visual thoughts? I think we kind of hit on the important parts there.
Yeah, no, there's not much to say about it. It's still a black and white game. But,
Audio.
Audio, oh boy. One of my favorite composers Hip Tanaka, or Hirokazu Tanaka. He was mostly an R&D1 guy. Koji Kondo was working with Miyamoto and that whole team, which ended up being R&D2 or EAD. But Hip Tanaka, a great composer, like one of the pioneers of chiptune music. He was also the sound editor on this game, so he was doing sound effects and stuff like that.
Some people refer to him as Chip Tanaka.
Chip Tanaka. Well, are they the same people that call Miyamoto Shiggy?
Probably.
Okay, cool.
But at least it's like actually is endearing and makes sense.
A little bit. Okay, I could see that. And they're not. It's not something like they're trying to make it seem like they're best friends with him.
Right. It's more like, hey, you're the father of chiptunes.
Right. Also, he was out in the Japanese. I can't remember what town he was living in. I mean, they all lived in Kyoto, but he was out in the local music scene doing stuff too, playing shows and stuff like that. But he whether it was game music, chiptunes music, real music, he didn't care. He just wanted to like make cool stuff. So Hip Tanaka's cool.
And he was all about the Pokemon too, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he was.
Did he do the music for that?
It says, he was involved in the Pokemon franchise, Metroid, Kid Icarus, Tetris, Mother, Dr. Mario, Earthbound. So, those are some pretty serious games.
I mean, this game itself, Mario Land 1, was made by like a few people, him being one of them, in much the same way you hear stories about Koji Kondo being integral to the development of Mario 1, like Super Mario Brothers on the NES. He was integral to this game.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I have nothing but good things to say about Hirokazu Tanaka.
Yeah. I love this soundtrack. I know the front half much better than some of the later levels, just because as a kid I didn't play them as much. But man, really strong songs right out the gate. I appreciate so much that they didn't just try to use everything that had already come before it in Mario games, but they're like, let's come up with some good, creative, original stuff that still sounds like a Mario song, but isn't like, let's just take the da-da-da-da-da-da and change it up and make it different. They actually were like, no, we can make our own catchy stuff. And I think a lot of people really enjoy this music. I think it's pretty universally appreciated and
I would agree,
well loved. So honestly, you can't go wrong with it. Sound effects are fine. Beeps and boops, and
there's beeps and boops, but then like I said, there's just some jarring stuff in here because the whole game itself is slightly jarring from a Mario perspective. But, like the death knell of some of the enemies that you squish are just like, it just sounds like a dot matrix printer going off, and it's like, I don't know, almost makes you feel bad for killing things.
Yeah, right. But I remember that when I played it recently, I killed something. I was like, ooh, that's something.
But I think it works, though.
Totally. Anything else? Visual, audio?
No.
All right. Let's give our final thoughts on this game. Brian, what do you think?
It'll always be weird, and I will always love it. One of the early games I played on the Game Boy, but not just for the nostalgia purposes. Like, that's all well and good, but I admire what they did, and I think, true to form, Yamauchi made a good decision on making them, Mario at this point had turned into the most important thing Nintendo had. So he wanted to make sure that it worked and that a Mario game would be good. And it was a big risk, I think, letting someone else handle a Mario game, but it ended up working out. True to Yamauchi form, took a big risk, but he knew what he was doing. His instincts were almost always spot on.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm happy this exists. I'm glad it got made. It's a fun thing to talk about. It's different. Obviously, we've mentioned that so many times. It's just it's fun to look at and compare against other Mario games and see what they decided to do, why they chose to do certain things. And it's just a really cool piece of Mario's history. It's a fun little side thing. It would be neat if maybe one day the series took a game to explore more of this weird area. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even if it was just a bonus level or something. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's a great launch title. I think it really showed off. Hey, yeah, it's a Game Boy and it's got a green screen. It's black and white more or less, but you can still play Mario on it. Yeah, you can play that on your TV, but you can also take this with you and you got your own little Mario game.
Yeah.
And I think people were like, hey, that works for me. I'm sold, you know? And so I think it's a great launch title and a great game overall. Good music, visually fine, fun to play, and good for all ages, which is a good thing with the Game Boy.
And it exemplifies that sort of R&D1 style of like we're pushing our own hardware that we designed, and it also has that kind of puzzle solving, like hidden elements that would kind of become a staple of 3D Mario games later, or at least even Mario World. Mario World definitely had a lot of hidden stuff somewhere that you needed to have. If you don't have this power up, or you can't do this. Or like even in New Super Mario Brothers on the DS, the original New Super Mario Brothers, if there are places in these games that you can't get to if you're not tiny.
Yeah.
If you don't have it. If you are Big Mario, or if you are Super Mario, you can't get to this little area. So it's filled with, hey, you need to be super powered to get here, but also you can't get here unless you're at your weakest point. Yeah, I love R&D1 games. They're so fascinating and weird and interesting, and I think this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, how many thumbs up for this game?
I've got 2.
Are you going to give it 2?
I'll give it 2. Yeah,
Both thumbs?
I've always enjoyed this game, so I'd give it 2.
2 thumbs up for me as
quick,
well.
It's hard, but then it's also forgiving enough. If like I said, if you can solve that puzzle at the end of each level, you'll have no trouble getting through this game.
I agree. All right, guys, you heard it here first. 2 thumbs up.
And now it's time for this week's song of the week.
Is
this a Capcom game?
Yes.
It is?
It is.
Ha-ha!
It is from
Got it.
Mega Man 3.
Okay, for the Game Boy?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Yes, Brian, for the Game Boy.
I mean,
on our Game Boy show.
Well, it's Mega Man 3.
Yeah, I don't know what this track is called. It's just written here as track 19. It was probably tied to a specific level. I'm not entirely sure. But it was the credits here have Toru Asada and Koji Murata. So I assume they both worked on this together. Yeah, it's a good little song. Nice little Mega Man ditty.
I love Capcom music.
Yeah.
Really good.
The fact that you could point that out was impressive and shows that they have quality music. So
they have their little style.
Totally. All right, guys. Well, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a good episode. It's about time that we, after doing Tony Hawk games, it was time that we talked about something a bit more quality.
True.
But yeah,
something with good music, sound.
Totally. And man, we have so many more like A-list Game Boy games to get through. So hopefully here over time we'll knock some more of those out.
You think we'll be doing Tetris next?
Yeah, I think Tetris will be.
Yeah.
Not next week, but yes, the next Super Game Boy episode will probably be Tetris, and just kind of going in order here.
Oh boy.
So should be a good one. At least the music will be good at the very least.
Oh yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how much we can actually talk about with a puzzle game like that. But it's been done.
Oh, with me in the room and Tetris. Jeez. Oh, there will be lots to talk about.
Well, we all know that you like to talk, so I don't.
Also, there's no bigger story in retro games than Tetris.
Yeah, I guess the backstory is pretty great. I guess I'm thinking
crazy.
more like talking through gameplay. It's like, well, in one level there's the blocks, and in the next one there's more blocks. It gets faster. No, but it'll be good. I think that'll be a fun one. I don't know. Maybe next week for our next episode, we should do a garbage game.
Oh, I agree.
I think there's one that we've both played that maybe we should take a look at.
All right.
If you're game, we're being coy, but you'll have to just come back next week and see what that game is if we decide to do it. Guys, thanks so much for joining us this episode. If you want, you can find more of our episodes on thenintendovillage.com. We're also on the Nintendo Village YouTube as well as iTunes. Until then, guys, join us next week for more Strictly Game Boy.
See ya.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, check out some of our other videos, and visit thenintendovillage.com, your home for everything Nintendo.